Welcome to the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast, powered by StatRoute.com. And now, here's your host, Ryan Skullroot.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullroot. We are back. It has been a few weeks. We've had some holidays that we've been dealing with and some family kind of out of town. So we're officially back, ready for another episode of the podcast. We want to thank all of our listeners and thank you guys all for taking the time to listen to us here on the show and for supporting us. A couple of things we want to mention real quick. Again, our draft guide is on pre-sale right now. You can get that at the website SkullKingFootball.com. We have brought on a few more writers, so we have finished a lot of our content creation, I guess you could say, for the draft guide, and it's just a matter of editing and putting it all together so that we will be ready to go to put that live on July 1st. Let's see, anything else? I think that's about it for the announcements. So why don't we go ahead and get started? A little bit of a short show today. We're going to go through some news, and then we're going to cover the consensus of the rankings that have been submitted so far by the staff here at SkullKing. We have a consensus so far of our quarterback rankings, so we're going to go over those. So since I believe that's it, why don't we go ahead and get started with today's headlines.
Today's headlines.
All right, so we are going to get started off with after a year off, Cowboys tight end Jason Witten, quote-unquote, has not lost a step. We will see about that when games actually start. He is not someone that we are necessarily going to say you should go pick up. However, when he was back with the team a year ago, he was kind of a safety net for Dak Prescott. So that is maybe something to at least look at as we get into the preseason. Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette said a week ago that he has used this offseason to essentially reboot himself and start over, admitted he'd made some mistakes. Basically talking about his arrest for driving with a suspended license, but that he doesn't feel a need to prove himself. And to go with that, he has been absent for the second consecutive day of OTAs. If you are trying to reboot yourself, I think, to me, that would mean that you are going to prove that you are the teammate that you need to be and to be there to help your new teammates and to continue to create chemistry, especially with the new quarterback that's there. So very interesting that he has missed a couple days already of OTAs, even though he wants to recreate himself. So I am low on the Leonard Fournette support chain. So moving on, Ryan Fitzpatrick reportedly has been the best Dolphins quarterback at OTAs so far. This was about a week ago, and then to go along with it, it has still kind of been, everyone's kind of comparing, okay, who's it going to be, Ryan Fitzpatrick or Josh Rosen? We shall see. I still think, honestly, I think it's going to be Fitzpatrick, and then they're going to eventually have to move to Josh Rosen to see if he is the guy. A report came out last week from Jay Glazer that Rams running back Todd Gurley's knee issue is a real concern for him and for the team. He started with knee issues at Georgia when he suffered an ACL tear in his left knee. Since then, he's been dealing with arthritis. We here at SkullKing, we are down on the draft Todd Gurley thing. We are avoiding Todd Gurley and advising people to avoid Todd Gurley, even if you can get him in the second round, unless you are willing to maybe reach a little bit for Darrell Henderson. We would avoid Todd Gurley. So that's kind of where we're at with this. Patriots tight end Benjamin Watson announced on Facebook that he failed a drug test and is suspended for the first 4 games of the 2019 season. A lot of people kind of freaked out about this. I can't believe that that this is happening. Ben Watson seemed like he was such this, straight shooter. Well, let's not forget. Here's kind of what happened. Ben Watson had retired. And then as part of that retirement had decided, okay, now he was being prescribed by his doctor in order to get healthy again. And to get his body right, he was prescribed some testosterone, basically, to help the healing process. He was issued a drug test, which, even though he had, decided he retired out of habit, went ahead and took it. After he took it, realized that he was probably going to fail because of the prescription that he had been taking from his doctor. Comes out he fails. And so when he did decide to come back, everyone knew that he was possibly going to sign with. Everyone knew that he was going to be failing this drug test. It was already known. I mean, Watson knew before he was going to try to sign that this was going to be the case. So let's cool our jets a little bit on Benjamin Watson, him being, this not so great guy, untrustworthy. He had retired and was already on his post-career recovery when this happened. So Kyler Murray, the Cardinals, is exclusively lining up in the shotgun formation at OTAs. Further affirmation the Cardinals will be completely revamped come week 1, which it needed to be anyways. I am still not a believer in Kyler Murray. I've had some information from some of the schools and some things in the Texas area that I'm in the process of doing a write-up, basically talking about how I believe that Kyler Murray may be more Johnny Manziel than Baker Mayfield. So keep an eye out for that. Bruce Arians' final 2 seasons in Arizona, the Cardinals ran 90 and 94% of their plays out of shotgun, finished 2nd and 5th in offensive plays run per game. It looks like that's going to be kind of the MO for the Bucs, and so we'll see how that helps out Jameis Winston. The NFL, there's a report out that the NFL is likely to review the incident involving Ezekiel Elliott. We will see if that comes out, if that results in a suspension. We know that the NFL does not require an arrest to suspend someone, or does not require charges to suspend someone. So definitely something for, especially in dynasty leagues, Ezekiel owners, something to watch out for. Daniel Jones has been splitting second-team reps with Alex Tanney. Coach Pat Shurmur thinks that the rookie QB is getting better every day. There was another thing that came out about 2 weeks ago, that Golden Tate said that this kid has an absolutely rocket of an arm. He's been working on his arm strength. So we will, again, just another thing to keep an eye on as we move through OTAs and start getting closer to camp. Marcus Mariota has gained 12 to 13 pounds, which is probably good for him. It wasn't that he was like super skinny, but guys that have the lower body fat tend to get injured easier. And so that's, if you look at, DK Metcalf, some of the injuries that he suffered in college, that was one of the, I've seen a physical therapist that studies football and football injuries. That's one of the things that he said about DK Metcalf, is to kind of watch out if he, with his, 3% body fat or whatever it is, that could actually be partially to blame for some of his injuries. So hopefully that can help Mariota keep from getting injured quite as much. The new Lions OC, Darrell Bevell, says we are a running football team. We will see again. I think that for me, that bodes very well for C.J. Anderson and for how late that you can get him right now in drafts. A lot of people say that's great for Kerryon Johnson. Well, it could be, but however, the Lions themselves have even stated that they do not believe that Kerryon Johnson is an all-purpose back, and that they don't know if he can actually take on that kind of a load. So hence the signing of C.J. Anderson, and so C.J. Anderson could very well have a decent role and probably play some fantasy spoiler in Detroit this year. Quarterback Jameis Winston says that Ronald Jones is, quote, showing out. Said he's more relaxed and comfortable so far this offseason. I mean, with how low Ronald Jones is going in drafts, I mean, he's in 10-team leagues in the mock drafts going right now. He has been undrafted from what I could tell. So I'm not opposed to, say, taking a late round flyer on a guy like him in 10 to 12 team leagues. Just something to watch out for, but I'm not actively going to look to go after him. I want to see a little bit more of what he could do in the preseason. Going back to Todd Gurley, Sean McVay says that he has not been doing any work on the field OTAs. But has been a consistent participant in their offseason program. They've got him on a great plan. We'll see if that has if that does anything for his knees. I'm still would rather have Darrell Henderson, what he could possibly do for the Rams offense. Moving on to Ezekiel Elliott. Moving on. Eagles rookie running back Miles Sanders has missed OTA time with the strained hamstring, but the injury is not considered serious. Could return to action as early or miss a couple days early. Definitely something to watch out for. I like Miles Sanders. He's probably my favorite running back in the Philadelphia offense, more than Jordan Howard. I know that Jordan Howard could be cheap, and he's probably going to have more of a first and second down type of role. Maybe a goal line type role. However, the Eagles don't really use a heavy single back. They spread all the work around everywhere, so it's not the best situation for a running back or for drafting a running back out of that running back room. But again, something to watch for. Sanders is my favorite. We'll kind of see how this plays out. Packers are flush with slot wide receivers, and roles are fluid, but Geronimo Allison would be an exciting fit there. I like Geronimo Allison. He was on a pace for quite a season this last year. He was on pace for 1,150 yards, 8 touchdowns, about 80 catches after the first 4 games. Then injuries kind of took over the rest of the season. So Allison, especially if you can get him cheap, that's definitely a guy to look at as the number 2 wide receiver in Green Bay. Eagles Carson Wentz to Deshaun Jackson connection has been strong during OTAs. Jackson, again, another guy that's going basically undrafted in 10-team leagues. He's going really late in 12-team leagues, a guy to look out as a possible late-round sleeper that, last year he was basically the same thing. Really took off the first few weeks, and then, if you can manage to, get him, this is thinking way ahead, but, if you can get him, he shows up for the first couple weeks, try to trade him off to get a piece for him, that would not be a bad idea. Paris Campbell is getting into the mix a little bit with the first-team offense, kind of trying to show a little bit of what he could possibly do with Andrew Luck. James Conner is taking a very good view of this year, says that he has not earned anything yet. It's true, he has not. With Jalen Samuels still back there, I believe they also drafted Benny Snell in Pittsburgh, so they've got some decent running backs. So James Conner, if he can't stay healthy, definitely some good tools in there for the Pittsburgh Steelers to use. Let me see a couple other things. Nick Foles is back with the Jaguars today, sad day for the Foles family, following his wife getting sick and ended up miscarrying their child. Thoughts and prayers out with the Foles family. There's a very difficult situation to deal with, for many people, including my family that has dealt with miscarriage. This is a rough time for a family. So for those of you who think of it, say a prayer for the Foles family. This is a difficult time. It's great to see that he's back with the team, but definitely thoughts and prayers with that with the Foles family especially. And I think we've got 2 last big things here. David Johnson said he's focused on his conditioning because the Cardinals want to run 90 to 95 plays per game. We've brought this up already about the Cardinals offense. Well, I think this is great for the outlook of David Johnson. I still don't trust Kyler Murray. This is another thing that, people mentioned the Chip Kelly offense and how this was kind of his MO and what he wanted to do with the offense that he was running when he was in Philadelphia. The problem is if you don't do well on first and second down, you're in trouble. If you can't get first downs, you can't run 90 to 95 plays. So we'll see how Cliff Kingsbury's, how his offense can handle in the NFL. I think that this may just be another fad that kind of comes and goes. I don't trust Kyler Murray. The Kansas City Chiefs are stating that Damian Williams is our starter. Tight end Hayden Hurst of the Ravens has added 20 pounds of muscle. Hopefully that'll help him stay healthy and on the field this year. And let's see. I think that is about it. Jack Doyle with his hip should be cleared by mid-June. And that is it of the fantasy relevant news. And so that is it. That's all we got for that. So a lot of news going on. We are just getting into, like we said, OTAs have started. We're starting to build up into that time of the year where more news is happening. You've got more workouts. Injuries are starting to happen. And so we will do our best to keep you guys up to date with all the relevant news, how our rankings are changing, and that sort of thing. So for now, that is it for the news. So why don't we go ahead and move into our next little section where we are going to talk about the quarterback rankings and the consensus rankings that we have right now on the website for the quarterbacks. Here, I'm just pulling up the page. And it's pretty unanimous at number one. All six people that have their rankings up right now on the website have Patrick Mahomes at number one. Here, let me actually pull it up on here so that everyone can see it. I'll watch it on the live stream. So here's our consensus rankings. So what I've done is I'm going to go through our top 10 and give their ranking of where they finished last year. And the ranking is, maybe a little different for some people. And the reason is because I did this only for weeks 1 through 16, not weeks how their final totals ended up week 1 through 17. So this is week 1 through 16 because that's where most normal leagues and for all leagues that I advocate for end at week 16. So that's how we use the point basis here. And then kind of fill you in a little bit on kind of the total stats they had last season and their ceiling and floor that they had that season. And this is one of the things that we use from statroute.com, our main statistics research tool that we use. And so it'll show their floor and their ceiling and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and start off. Like we said, Patrick Mahomes finished last year as the QB number one, 5,100 pass yards in his first season as a starter, 52 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Here's the thing about Patrick Mahomes is because of the offense that they ran, his ceiling, so his highest single week score was 39 points for quarterbacks with, I believe, 4 point per touchdown passing league. His floor was by far the highest. So his lowest scoring week was 15.5 points, almost 16 points. There's no one else came in anywhere close. No one even had 10 for their lowest score of the season. So just look at the consistency of Patrick Mahomes. While I do think that he is going to have another great year, I don't necessarily see him putting up 5,100, 52, and 52. I see him more, he could still put up 5,000 yards with the way their offense is. That may be a little bit harder if Tyreek Hill is not involved, but again, we kind of fans of Mecole Hardman here. He could possibly step into that role. But I could see Patrick Mahomes real close to about 4,800 yards and about 45 touchdowns. Still a great year, but not, that could still put him as the quarterback one, but not worth taking the second round like he's going right now in 10-team leagues. Moving on, number 2 in our consensus is Andrew Luck. Last year he finished as the quarterback 6, almost 4,600 yards, 39 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. His ceiling was 37 points, and his floor was 9. 9 was the lowest that he scored all year. Honestly, I think that Andrew Luck should be in good shape as long as they can stay healthy. The Colts have been keeping him out of OTAs They're on the field, but just standing on the sidelines, not really getting him involved, not really throwing him just to try to rest up that shoulder. Number 3, Aaron Rodgers finishes the quarterback 4 last year, and Rodgers finishes the quarterback 4 with only 27 touchdowns and 4,300 yards, but again, only threw 2 interceptions. His ceiling last year was 43 points, had a week of 43 points, a floor of only 1 point. And I think that might have been week 1 against the Chicago Bears when the Bears defense just basically, showed out for week 1 of the year. So, no, it wasn't week 1. It was a little bit later because Rodgers still threw a couple touchdowns in that game. Anyways, number 4 in our consensus is Drew Brees. Last year he finished as quarterback 7. Threw for just under 4,000 yards. He would have thrown for over 4,000 yards. However, they sat him in week 17, I believe. So through 16 games, through 16 games he threw for 39.92. Didn't play in week 17. Still 36 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. Again, his ceiling and floor, 40-point ceiling, 6-point floor. Had a couple games where they just kind of gave it to the running backs, and Kamara and Ingram took over the game. So, again, decent consistency out of Drew Brees. Not as many yards as he has put up in the past, but they've been depending more on that run game. We'll kind of see how that plays out this year with Ingram gone. Number 5 is, Matt Ryan. Finishes the quarterback 3 last year, 4,900 yards, 39 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Had a ceiling of 44, had the highest point total for a quarterback in a single week at 44 points. His floor had an 8-point week last year. If you go to SkullKingFootball.com, you can see our quarterback writer, Aaron Kagan, wrote an article, Matt Ryan, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, talking about the back and forth nature of how Matt Ryan has played over the last few years, and where he has finished in terms of fantasy rankings. And basically, the basic way to look at it is in odd years, he has been horrible, and in even years, he's been great. We are moving into an odd year. 2012, he was QB 6. 13, he was QB 15, then QB 7, then QB 19, QB 2, QB 15, then QB 3 last year. Then this year, 2019, I think that he is still set. I think that he has the tools around him to be able to still finish in that top 5. So I think I have him actually as the quarterback. And let me look right here. I actually have him as the quarterback 5 personally in my rankings. So something to watch out for this year. But I think that he is still poised for a good season. Number 6, Deshaun Watson finishes QB 5 last year, 4,100 yards, 31 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. The thing about Watson, I think, is he actually led the NFL quarterbacks in terms of rush yards. So just with his mobility, he's one of the guys that I'm targeting this year. One of the guys I'm advocating for people to target if you want to wait on guys like Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers. You can get Deshaun Watson right now in like the late 6th or 7th round in 10-team leagues. So definitely a guy that I'm advocating for. Number 7 in our consensus is Russell Wilson. Finishes the QB 8 last year. And while it may be interesting that Wilson still finished as a top 10 quarterback on a team that ran the ball 52% of the time. That's because his efficiency was off the charts. He threw for 35 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Compare that to Ben Roethlisberger, who threw only 2 more touchdowns on, I want to say it was 250 more pass attempts. So Russell Wilson, again, 28-8 were his ceiling and floor. Moving on, number 8, Baker Mayfield finished last year's QB 17. Again, let's also remember that he missed the first 2 weeks. He was not the starter. Didn't become the quarterback until halfway through the 3rd game. Finished with 3,700 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Extrapolate that to a full 16 games, he would have finished with 4,400 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions. So Baker Mayfield, with all the tools they've put around him, it'll be interesting to see where he can finish. we are very hopeful for him this year. Coming down the last two, number 9, Cam Newton finished last year's QB 10, almost 3,400 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. As long as his shoulder's holding up, we think that he can still have a decent season and be very fantasy relevant, especially his running the ball and running the ball into the end zone. And then rounding out our top 10 is Ben Roethlisberger. Last year finished as a QB2. I think part of the reason why we've knocked him down a little bit, I have him as number 6. A couple of the guys, right around the 10 to 12 range in our rankings. Last year threw for 5,100 yards, 37 touchdowns, like I said, 16 interceptions. The thing about Ben Roethlisberger that you have to remember is he is very kind of that Jekyll and Hyde also. Very crazy good at home, but really struggles on the road. He is now lost. He doesn't have Le'Veon Bell. He didn't have Le'Veon Bell last year, but now take away Le'Veon Bell. He also has lost Antonio Brown. He has Juju. He has James Conner, who had the great breakout season last year. Other tools around that they can use. I'm just not. I think that he will pull down a little bit from what he did last year, especially with how many running backs they have and how well those running backs can move. I don't see the Pittsburgh Steelers throwing the ball 675 times again this year. So that's where I'm at with that. And again, his ceiling and floor, 41 points and 9 points as his floor. So again, those are our running back our quarterback consensus rankings for the rankings that have been turned in so far on SkullKingFootball.com. Again, you can go to the website and hit the fantasy rankings tab at the top of the page, and you can see all of our rankings. We do not do overall rankings where everyone together. We simply do it by position. Everyone has their own methodology on how they want to rank on who to pick first. We let you guys kind of work on that because everyone's going to do it a little bit different. So, but you can look up our quarterback rankings, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defensive rankings. Make sure to check those out. And so that is all I've got for you guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this. We are going to continue to work through. I believe next week we are going to work on our running back rankings, give our top 10 there. And work through those over this next month until, again, July 1st, our draft guide comes out officially. You can get it a little bit cheaper right now on pre-sale. Make sure to check that out. Again, go to SkullKingFootball.com to check that out. For those of you listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, make sure to hit that subscribe button, share it out with everyone. Leave us a rating and review to help us know how we can improve. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us. We are the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast, and we will talk to you guys later.